Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks again for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting today's show. On the hazardous weather graphic, we've got a coastal flood warning out here for the Yukon Delta coast, and also up on the south side, or the coastal areas of the southern Seward Peninsula. Due to gusty winds and high seas could cause beach erosion there. That coastal flood warning's out until roughly about noon on Tuesday for that area. And then to the north here, Noatak Valley area, that's a winter storm warning out for snow, looking for 4 to 7 inches of snow there through midday tomorrow, and then the warning due to end again at noon. And then winter weather advisories here in the entire yellow shaded areas for into tomorrow here for these western zones, and also into tomorrow through midday down to the south into the Fairbanks area on into Denali Park, and then until early evening for these two zones over here, southern Brooks Range into the Yukon Valley. Moving on to satellite imagery, have a front pushing south of the Panhandle today, a trough bringing clouds and showers down, following it in behind, followed by clearing and drier conditions with high pressure roughly through the entire eastern part of the state. Band of clouds grazing the eastern Beaufort Sea coast with a little bit of light snow and flurries, but the bulk of the snow staying offshore, just offshore there. Out west, low pressure here tracking up toward Russia, and the front and a lot of moisture streaming eastward, actually from south to north here, flowing into the western interior with snow changing to rain over toward the Bering Strait with gusty winds high as 50 miles an hour across St. Lawrence Island on up into the Bering Strait areas with gusty winds and rain here, not quite to the Pribilof Islands by early afternoon on Monday, and then into the interior. McGrath had snow today, and mixed rain and snow down to Sparivon, and then back to the west here out toward the Chimie-Attu area. And rolling that through again, you can see the mostly sunny skies here we had over south central Alaska. High clouds now just crossing the Alaska Range, also creeping in on Kodiak Island, with the general area high pressure moving eastward, centered just northeast of south central Alaska there, roughly right over the Alaska Range, eastern Alaska Range. So mostly sunny conditions, offshore flow here, northwest flow, dry northwest flow, making it mostly sunny right down to the coastline, North Gulf Coast. Showers ending over toward Yakutat, but this system keeping it showery over the Panhandle with the bulk of the rain on down to the southeast with that front. Back out to the west, here's that system driving northeastward there. Got a mixed rain and snow pattern right through here, snow in advance of it. And there were some isolated rain and snow showers earlier today here right along the eastern interior from roughly the Eagle area on down toward Northway, Tok, and those locations, but nothing really significant now, and high pressure building in with rain again just north of the Pribilof Islands. Gusty southwest winds, pretty good fetch here. So we have the coastal flood warning out for the Yukon Delta and southern coast of the Seward Peninsula areas. With forecast for tonight, that front continues push inland here. And again, the winter weather advisories with snow, again, looking forward to 7 inches in these areas into the central interior, northward to the Yukon Valley, and then back. Warmer air, though, either mixed or down to at sea level, either mostly in the form of rain or mixed rain and snow. And then the front here, a band of rain right across the Yukon Delta, out to again just north of the Pribilofs and trailing back into where it becomes a warm front out over the western Aleutians. Otherwise, high pressure shifts over into the Yukon here. Stays mostly clear and dry from the Copper River Basin down to the North Gulf Coast. Again, clouds be on the increase here over Cook Inlet tonight, as well as the Susitna Valley, and drying out down over the Panhandle. And that'll continue into Tuesday as well. Looks mostly sunny there across the southeast coast with light winds. Most of the low clouds will stay off the coast. The front here pushes eastward. Mixed rain and snow to the south. Farther to the south should be mostly rain from the northern Kuskokwim Valley on out across Kuskokwim Bay. And the next system, frontal system, pushing eastward here. Good south to north flow. So rain coming back up to the eastern and more likely the central Aleutians. Probably just kind of light rain, drizzle, and fog condition here for the eastern Aleutians. Be more of a steady rain and gustier winds for the Adak-Atka area. And then rain along the warm front, showers and windy back behind the front toward the main low center. And for Wednesday, this front really washes out, pushes eastward, just a weak trailing edge coming down across the southern southeast coast for some shower conditions down in that area. Mostly sunny to the north, high pressure once again building in behind that, centering just over the eastern Alaska range at 1,022 millibars, so looking mostly sunny here for south central Alaska. Lingering rain and snow showers or snow showers there depending on your elevation here. Denali Park back to the northwest. Snow showers, 2 areas of light snow here from the upper Yukon Valley or just near or north of the White Mountains on up to the eastern Arctic coast. Dry back to the northwest. An intense storm here pushes into the northwest Bering Sea, pressure down to 959 millibars. And you can see the very tight pressure field associated with that. And it looks like storm warnings out in advance of the front here for St. Lawrence Island. Of course, warmer air coming northward and then pulling off to the northwest. So rain could start out as snow, but be mostly rain and definitely a big increase in those southeast winds. Could have storm warnings all the way down to Nunivak Island. Rain with this system by late afternoon, pushing inland roughly to about here. And also eastward into the Alaska Peninsula, gusty winds, rain, gale force winds here for the eastern Aleutians moving into the Alaska Peninsula, and very windy conditions with showers out over the western Aleutians. Otherwise, as I mentioned, just high pressure here over the southeast interior. Lows for tonight, lower to mid 20s, Copper River Basin where it remains clear. Just a shade below 20 in the Brooks Range. 30s to mid 40s for the lows here, Bristol Bay out to the Kuskokwim Delta, and 40s for the Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow, upper 20s, Brooks Range, central and eastern areas, much milder back to the west here into the 30s, and along the coast, lower 40s, so quite a warm up here. And it looks like mid 40s pushing all the way up into almost the western Tanana Valley with lower 40s by afternoon there in the Fairbanks area, otherwise upper 30s off to the east, 40 degrees for Fort Yukon, and then coming up, but not quite making 50 down along the southwest coast. Kodiak Island should be in the lower 50s, as well as portions of the Kenai Peninsula, Seldovia, Homer, and lower 50s, Alaska Peninsula, Aleutians, all the way out to Shimia. And looking at lows for the Wednesday morning, upper 20s along the Arctic coast, teens to lower 20s through the Brooks Range. Again, mildest here along the southwest coast, lower 40s here to Kodiak Island, mid to upper 40s for the eastern Aleutians, and Alaska Peninsula down into the 30s for the southeast coast, and 20s again, eastern Copper River Basin northward there, but central Tanana Valley, upper 20s to lower 30s. High temperatures for tomorrow afternoon, upper 20s to near 30 here along the Brooks Range, and really mild over the Aleutians. Unalaska forecast high 56 degrees, lower 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, upper 40s western Aleutians, and mostly in the 50s here for the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather, we've got a swath of IFR here from right about St. Paul Island, northeastward into the southwest coast, right on into the interior here, expanding down at least to the Alaska Range and northward to the south side of the Brooks Range, and then on back to the northwest. And then some more IFR here along and south of the west central Aleutians. VFR, southeast interior here, 40-mile country, Copper River Basin, all the way down the southeast coast. Tomorrow afternoon, still IFR here from the far western Arctic coast across the Noatak Valley there, south of the Brooks Range to the Koyukuk, and then southward here through the central interior, right along the western Alaska Range. IFR also central Alaska Range toward Windy Pass, and also along the White Mountains, staying VFR, Copper River Basin, down the southeast coast. Widespread area of IFR now. That area really takes a good jog to the north and to the east here over the Bering. So for Wednesday morning, that continues to creep eastward here, reaching the Yukon Delta, and then extending back down roughly to about the Aleutians, with more IFR along and south of the chain. Marginal VFR over much of the interior. IFR still south side of the Brooks Range, now up along the Arctic coast. And VFR roughly from the Wrangell Mountains, Prince William Sound, south central Alaska looking pretty good on down the southeast coast. Got some marginal now forming right along the central coast. And for Wednesday afternoon, that pretty much stays put there. VFR now back in the picture here over the central interior, marginal lingering on the east side, IFR eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Lots of IFR out here over the Bering Sea, right up to the coast here, covering Norton Sound, up to the Bering Strait areas, and then southward across the eastern Aleutians. Passes Anaktuvuk tomorrow, marginal VFR, lowest conditions to the south, and same forecast for Adigan, lowest conditions on the southern entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR also for rainy and windy as well, IFR conditions throughout the day. Isabel, marginal. And for Mentasta, marginal VFR. Tonita, though, will be VFR, as well as Portage, another VFR day. And for Chilkoot and White, both VFR. Looking at the freezing levels, roughly about 2,000 feet here up into the west central interior, 4,000 feet through Bristol Bay, 6,000 feet almost all the way up to the North Gulf Coast here, and 2,000 to 4,000 across the Panhandle, with 8,000 feet now nudging north of the central Aleutians. And for icing threats, a lot of moisture streaming northward here, so could be some widespread moderate rime icing, but way up there above 10,000 feet here with that warmer air streaming northward as well, and about 4,000 feet lifting up this way. A narrow band of possible light rime icing right in across Nunivak Island, and then it could get maybe a little more widespread here along the coast range in the northern Kuskokwim Valley. Chance of icing here from the northwest, Kotzebue Sound, Seward Peninsula eastward. And the jet stream for tomorrow, good southwest flow here into the Bering Sea, takes a turn to the east, 120 knots, spreading moisture in, and then taking a turn to the northwest here at about 70 to 80 knots, 9,000 foot winds, pretty strong. Southerlies 45 knots coming up from the central Aleutians, even stronger out west, 55 knots as you get in closer to that rather strong low center. But good winds coming up southwest 45 to 50 knots right into the southwest interior, and 25 to 35, some cases maybe even up to 40 knots cutting right through the central interior, much lighter up toward the Arctic coast. And the Panhandle northwesterlies maybe up to 25 there just off the coast of Prince of Wales Island, otherwise 10 to 15. And then taking a look, moving on to the 3,000 foot winds. Something of a little bit of a ridge still lingering here up along the North Gulf Coast, so not too bad in the winds here across the Panhandle with higher pressure off to the northeast, low pressure, western Arctic coast, good flow between the high to the south and this low, 25 to 30 knots, west-southwest right through the interior, Kodiak Island, 25 to 30 out of the west, and then 35 knots central Aleutians, 20 knots on the east side, still up to 50 out towards Shimei and Attu. And taking a look at the turbulence, with that, occasional moderate chop along and just on the north side of the, just about all of the Aleutian chain and the Alaska Peninsula, again extending all the way out to Shimei and Attu, also up here Seward Peninsula and the northeast interior. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the ice edge and the marine forecasts.
We have cleaned over 1,500 miles of shoreline now.
Basically, it comes down to just human muscle. I mean, we use chainsaws and knives.
We find stuff from like Russia and China and Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia. It really doesn't matter where it comes from. We all just have to clean it out.
Our goal right now in the next 10 or 11 days before the end of this year is just to see how much we can collect before we get to remove it.
What you see on the beach is a fraction of what's out there. You can pretty much break it down into 3 or 4 things. Water bottles, a lot of water bottles, styrofoam, fishing nets, fishing buoys. And that's 99% of what you find on the beach. Basically just go along with chainsaws and muscle and get the garbage, put it in sacks, and then from there we haul it up above the log jam so it's out of any heavy surf or winter storms if it's gonna stay there for the year, and put it in super sacks. So yeah, we just progressively work down the coast, just day in and day out.
We have like daily goals for ourselves that like if we're working at a pretty good rate, we'd like to keep on pace with about like, I don't know, about 20 to 25 super sacks a day. So this is pile 102, and in this pile right now we have 2 super sacks and 1 set of buoys. June 23rd here, this is what we've done today. We're up to 25 super sacks on the day, and I think for now we'll call it and just keep cleaning until tomorrow.
My name is Hannah, and I represent a organization in Japan called Japan Environmental Action Network. With over 20 people working together to clean up the beach, this is amazing. Like, we all need to work together to, clean up the beach as much as possible. So like every single time I go back to Japan, I talk to the fishermen, and the fishermen's like, it's a joke, but they're like, if you find any buoy with my logo, you gotta bring it back, and like always looking out for that stuff.
The crew's awesome. I mean, we're all skiers or snowboarders, and we're all friends. I mean, we're all good friends. My dad started it. He's the man behind the desk. He makes the ball roll for sure. He works hard. He doesn't give up easy, which is good.
This stuff is uplifted quite a ways during the earthquake. Well, I think my bag's about full already. Yep. I'm gonna take a quick look back in here. Somebody else is back here.
The thing about marine debris is it's kind of a hidden problem. Unless you're out there, especially on these remote beaches that are so heavily impacted, people don't see it. I remember probably a good 20 years ago, I was out on the outside of Montague Island, flew out there, and I was just utterly astounded by all the garbage out there. You walk out there and you wade through this stuff and you go, this isn't right, this shouldn't happen.
I think a lot of it's just awareness. I mean, I've been boating out here for a long time, and I wasn't even aware of how extensive the marine debris problem is out here, but it's a consumer world out there for sure. I mean, I don't know where people's values are, I guess, but mine is you got to kind of have a little bit of respect for the environment, and considering we live in it, especially in Alaska. I mean, a lot of people like the outdoors and like to be part of the outdoors. That's why they live here, and it's they don't necessarily want to see it trashed.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Got a zoomed in view here. Ice forming right around here on out to the central Arctic coast, and also inside the barrier islands here along the Chukchi Sea coastline, Point Lay on up, and then right in through here. And of course, continuing that trend that already has been going on here inside the barrier islands along the eastern Arctic coast. Actually started hitting some ice on the other side as well, but not very much. As for marine forecasts, north winds up to 20 knots on the south coast of the Panhandle. Otherwise, light northwest breeze 10 to 15 for the inside waters with seas there 2 to 3 feet. Looking at 8 to 10 foot seas here out along the outer coastline. And then for Wednesday, northwest 20, seas 8 to 9 feet in the south coast. Lighter up north here, still out of the northwest, with just 10 to 15. And even lighter winds now for the inside waters. Northwest 5 Clarence Strait to north 10 there for Stevens Passage, and northerly canal north at 15. Moving on to Prince William Sound, northwest at 10. So pretty light winds for the Sound tomorrow, 2 foot seas. Westerlies 25, small craft advisories here for all of the North Gulf Coast. About 30 knot winds from the west for the Barren Islands, so losing the gales. And west 25 Kachemak Bay. Cook Inlet though, southwest 25 north of the Forelands to 30 knots south with seas 7 to 8 feet. And then for Wednesday, those turn westerly, drop off 10 knots north of the Forelands. Still 20 knots, 4 foot seas south of or over the southern inlet. West 30 knots, Kachemak Bay, in across the Barren Islands, and westerlies also along into the western North Gulf Coast, but really drop off as you head over toward Middleton Island, and light westerlies for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, west 25, otherwise east side of Kodiak there, west at 25 knots, 6 to 7 foot seas. 25 knot winds from the southwest for the Alaska Peninsula. Those will blow right on up into Bristol Bay there with 9 foot seas, otherwise 12 back to the southwest, and westerlies at 25 from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. And then on Wednesday, southwest 25 here with 7 foot seas. Gales coming back in across the Alaska Peninsula, minimum gales south 35 knots, higher gusts out of the northern bays. Seas 10 to as much as 15 feet. And then out west, the Aleutians, western Aleutians, actually the central western's pretty uniform forecast. Southeast 30, seas 10 to 12 feet. South 25 for the eastern Aleutians there with seas running 7 to 12 feet. And then for the next day, gales, especially across Unalaska Island, south 40, 12 to 18 foot seas. Minimum gales back near and west of Nikolsky, southwest 30 to 35. The gale force winds on the Bering Sea side of the islands. And then picking up again dramatically here as you get in toward that low center, southwest to west at 45 knots. And for the southwest coast, from the Pribilofs on up into Kuskokwim Bay, southwest 30 knots, 25 knots north of Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island, 30 knots. And then for Wednesday, we've got easterlies at 30 knots for the St. Lawrence Island area, but Norton Sound just southeast at 20. Gales here along the southwest coast, 35 knot winds there. Southerlies at 40 for the Pribilofs, southeast 40, St. Matthew Island. Up along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, winds southeast at 15 with 3 foot seas, turning east on the central coast, and then getting even lighter here in the west side. Then back up to 15. Small craft advisories from Wales on up to Cape Thompson. And then for the next day, those turn easterly, drop down to 15. Then they swing around to the west here from actually Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, and then Cape Beaufort on, it's northwest 15. Swinging around to kind of a light variable wind pattern here for the central and eastern coast, 5 to 15 knots, varying directions, seas 3 to 4 feet. For tonight again, this front southwest flow driving moisture, winter weather advisory central Tanana Valley, up to the southern Brooks Range, back to the west, kind of a mixed precipitation pattern back here, already rain in through here, and strong southwest winds continuing. Pretty windy as well over the interior. You can see gusts as high as 40 miles an hour. Southeast staying dry and mostly clear, and the panhandle, showers ending and becoming nicer. Next day that front weakens, pushes eastward. Next system developing out there to the west, and we have an intense storm coming in with gale force winds.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.